Oh, Steve White, Trek Way 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, now Discovery's over. I'm still sort of reflecting on it, but I'm also sort of surveying the wreckage, in the aftermath of Discovery. I feel like we fought a war and didn't win. Someone else sort of made that analogy where I think a lot of Star Trek fans got together because we really wanted to speak out about Discovery because it had really taken all the elements that made Star Trek special and unique and discarded them. Changed the universe. It discarded canon. It decided to do its own show, totally different from Star Trek's format and Star Trek's formula, and just do that. And some people liked that, and that's fine. Except, the actual fans, the existing fans, pre-existing fans, they lost something that was unique and special. And all these other people who never really got Star Trek and what made it special, they just viewed it as another sci-fi show. They didn't notice the difference. They didn't care. And a lot of fans were sort of bullied for saying, this is not Star Trek, I want Star Trek back, I'm missing Star Trek, and mourning Star Trek, and being defensive of Star Trek because it means something to them. These other people just didn't get it. And it was just really sad to see it sort of be now turned into this very generic space drama with sort of, science fantasy sort of technology and magic technology now, and having them remove it even from the era that it was in and put it in this post-apocalyptic Federation world where it's been destroyed and put back together and people have been apart for so long now, they've regressed to having prejudices and that they've got to work out. And it's just like they brought this amazing vision of the future and dragged it back to our times to make it relatable to people instead of making it something to aspire to or to inspire or to be a fantasy about a future that we would like to live in because it's better. Instead, it's just like today, but in the future with technology. So that isn't Star Trek, and that's the sort of problem I had with it and why I had a problem with almost every single episode. But what I'd like to do now it's over is go back and watch it again. Now the battle's over, now it's been cancelled, and like I said, we didn't win. It wasn't cancelled because we showed them what Star Trek was and how this failed to be Star Trek and how that was hurting Star Trek. They just cancelled it because it cost too much money. They had like 2 Star Trek shows running. They had like 4 and then looked at it and said, you know what, we're just going to keep this one going, cancel all the rest. We just need one Star Trek show and it costs enough money and the other shows are not, getting enough views to justify how much they're costing. So they cut the budget and cancelled the shows basically. And they just kept Strange New Worlds up, which was the best one so far. But the first season was good except for one episode. The second season just got worse and worse and worse and just took Star Trek to a level of cringe and mockery that I don't think it can recover from. So Star Trek is essentially dead. The Star Trek we grew up with exists only in that era of 18 years of TV production and the original series and the movies between that. And that's really it. And it just is really sad to think that Star Trek is now past tense. And what they're making now is just like generic space drama, generic sci-fi fan sort of show. But then, like I said, trying to look at that outside of the Star Trek bubble and see, does it have merits? Because there are things that they did intentionally. Because I was listening to some of the interviews and I'm like, oh, it's not they didn't have a clue. It's not they didn't know that it wasn't Star Trek. That's what they wanted to do. They just didn't care that it wasn't Star Trek. They wanted to do this type of show because that's what they thought Star Trek should be. So it does have its own artistic merit and its own integrity and quality, but it's, not Star Trek, and it's hard to see that or appreciate that in that context. And a lot of reviewers and that, because they hated it and they had an agenda, would just dismiss the things that, just not sort of adhering to the patriarchal, straight male, sort of military sort of thinking. The idea that you can actually fully embrace humanity in that sort of position where you can use your emotions and your feelings, and people can be diverse and different and weak. They don't have to be the best of the best and perfect. They can have their own merits and their own qualities. And all the things that they tried to explore with the show all have merit and are interesting. And it would have been amazing if it was its own show. So I'm going to try and go back and watch it. I'm going to do like a seasonal review, I guess. I don't think I can do every episode like I did with the originally weekly view and all that. Probably just highlight a couple of episodes. But I do want to go back and look at it and try and be fair and look at it objectively without the sort of panic of this is not Star Trek. We need to let these people know that they're doing this wrong and they're going to kill Star Trek. It's too late. It's dead, Jim. And I'm not too angry with the people behind it because wasn't their intention to ruin Star Trek. They didn't get what Star Trek was. They didn't see the value in it. They had other things they wanted to say and do, and they did that at the expense of Star Trek without really realizing what they were doing is what I think what happened. So it's a tragedy as opposed to like an assassination of Star Trek. It's more of a tragic so I'm just sort of looking at the whole thing, trying to sort of accept where Star Trek is, sort of mourn it, but also sort of trying to look at these shows, and just sort of try and look at them objectively and see if they did have more value than I was giving them credit for in that. So it's probably what I'm going to do because we've got like 9 months to fill before we see any Enterprise, any Strange New Worlds or anything else. So I guess that's what I'm going to be doing. So feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, and tune into my future reviews.